What's going on, guys? It's K-Dub here with another episode of Crypto Zombie. Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having a great day today. Now, I didn't make an update in the past 2 days because there really wasn't much to talk about, but finally, we are looking like Bitcoin wants to make a big move. We are looking to form this pattern and potentially have a big move by the 1st of July. So very, very soon, we are going to go into the charts and what I'm seeing right now, but I also want to discuss a major difference between what's happening right now and what actually happened back here during the fall of the summer of last year. Now, obviously, the price is a lot lower, so you could just say, oh, well, price is lower. Yes, but there's something happening in the background that ties in very closely to the problem that we spoke about in my previous video. Now, we know that the SEC has continued to deny these Bitcoin spot ETFs, right? Why is that happening? That's what I want to talk about because there is something very, very different today that we were not seeing back then. And you're definitely going to want to pay attention to that moving forward, guys. I also want to share some pretty incredible data for a lot of people that, they go on and say, the boat is over. I missed the boat for Bitcoin, or that Bitcoin is dead, right? And that was it. It was all fun and games while it lasted. No, there's actually some very compelling data. If you guys know what an S-curve is, you'd be quite surprised to see where we are on that chart. And, finally, I do have to admit that I actually was wrong, guys. So there's something that I've been talking about for weeks on the channel, and I made a bit of a mistake, and I would like to correct that. However, I think you're going to be happy with what the actual results are. So if that sounds good to you guys, thank you for coming back to the channel. Stick around to the end. We have 2 separate videos I want to play for you today too. I do think you're going to appreciate that. If you're not subscribed, definitely consider it. And I've talked enough. So let's put the lines on the chart. Let's dive in and see what's going on. So we are still in this downtrend. It is a downtrend. This is confirmed. Now, why are we stalling right here? Well, as you guys could see, if we actually zoom in right here, you could see that we're actually hitting a bit of resistance. If I come back over here, do you see we had this support? And like I said, this isn't really a very severe resistance. I don't see why Bitcoin just couldn't push through this, but you can see right here, we did have that support, right? And if we come over here and have a look, what is it doing? It's now currently acting as resistance. But keep in mind that this is a much smaller resistance overall. Really what we're still looking at is to try to come up here and minimally retest this trend, right? So what you want to see Bitcoin do is essentially come up here and, retest this, which is probably going to act as some very, very strong resistance. But like I said, Bitcoin is obviously clearly oversold. And you can also see on the lower time frame as well, we had 1, 2 touches right here. And then look, that line is currently acting as the resistance as well. So this is definitely showing us that we're not blasting through this. And unfortunately, the longer you kind of drag out, in these types of moves. So for example, if you're going to the upside and you have a pause and you're kind of not doing anything, then that usually means your next move is up. The longer we stay consolidating here without a move to the upside, unfortunately makes you think that we're going to have more downside, right? But I still personally think that we need to at least come up and retest some of these other levels because as I said, the bears still need to sell into some kind of strength. So there has to be some type of, even just short-term excitement that the price is going to go up so that they can sell into it. Nothing just goes straight down, forever, right? You need to have those ebbs and flows, those bounces, which is why I think right here, but, then again, coming off a move like this, right? What are we looking at? Is this a bear pennant? Is it a bear flag, right? It is technically, a bearish pattern that you are looking at right here. But as I said, I still believe that there needs to sort of be that bounce. You need that liquidity. Even if the bears want to short or want to sell, you still need to sell into the strength, right? So there has to be some kind of a rally. Now, what I did want to talk about, guys, is that we did not close above the 200 weekly moving average. And I had said that, as you can see right here, Bitcoin generally either tests it, right, and bounces perfectly off of it, or dips below it and then usually recovers by the next week. Well, that is actually not true, guys, because if you zoom in to the BLX, which is the longest aggregated sort of history of Bitcoin. So, obviously it changes on specific charts depending if you're looking at Coinbase or you're looking at Binance, but BLX is all of the data and it's the longest running Bitcoin history that we have. So some people argue it is the most accurate chart. And if we actually go back here, you actually notice, and you got to really zoom in for this, guys. So look at this. We actually didn't close when we fell below the week of August 17th in 2015. We came above it, we closed below it, and it was actually the following week that we put the candle above it. So it actually did take 2 weeks back in 2015. So in that sense, then no, the model technically isn't broken, because remember I was saying, if we don't close it by the end of the week, then that's it. Technically speaking, no. So I just want to say my apologies for that, guys. I didn't realize, I didn't zoom in down here, and obviously the BLX chart is the most comprehensive data for Bitcoin. So technically, no. I mean, technically we did see it take 2 weeks to get back above it, until the week of August 31st, right? So just pointing that out, not saying that, that means we're going to go straight to the moon, but I am saying that it's not that bad that we didn't close above it. We could still close above it this week, and that would still tie into what Bitcoin has done historically, according to the Brave New Coin Liquid Index for Bitcoin, the most comprehensive chart out there. So just wanted to point that out for you guys. There is still some hope, right? Now, as Gooby pointed out, though, at some point these downtrends do end. And you see, 2014, 2018, 2022, we have these very long, prolonged downwards movements, right? That's how you know that you're in a downtrend. The trend is your friend until the end. And usually what ends up happening is you have this point where it does start to level out, right? So having a look at what I've been saying, essentially, we are looking for that sort of bottoming out area, as I've been saying, around the end of this year. There's also talk that maybe the Fed might start relaxing at that point, so November, December. And then, as you can see, all previous markets tend to then do this sort of sideways pattern, right? Where it kind of chops you around. The bulls, the bears, they're fighting each other. The bulls think they're winning. Then all of a sudden it falls down. The bears say, hi, I told you. Then it pumps back up, right? And that usually goes on for another 6 months, which could mean that essentially 1 year from today, we could be really starting to see Bitcoin get back into that bull market territory, right? Obviously, we have a long way to go. We are still being supported by this legacy trend right here. But yeah, like I said, I am expecting a move. Now, this is obviously short-term stuff, but I do want to talk about some other things for Bitcoin as well. Now, Velvet had pointed out we could have had this expanded flat pattern, which coincides with the the M-shaped pattern that I've been talking about, right? You have this M and then it drops off. We saw stocks do that, right, over a decade back in the 90s, right? So it's not like we haven't seen price action do stuff like that before. But I do want to talk about what is different this time, something very, very different. Now, this does tie into my previous video, but as you can see right here, exchange reserves. Let's talk about this. So this is according to data from Crypto Quant. They say 21 major exchanges are currently down 2.4 million in Bitcoin withdrawal. So people are pulling their Bitcoin off exchanges, right? So they say normally price collapses trigger inflows to exchanges as panicking traders prepare to sell or short. This time it would appear really it is different in that respect. So, obviously you guys can see right here, when we had that downtrend, you saw the inflows coming in, right? And usually that's a bearish sign. People are sending crypto to the exchanges, right? When we saw miners sending crypto to the exchanges, sending Bitcoin to the exchanges, presumably that was to sell. Well, what we're actually seeing today is crypto get taken off the exchanges. This seems quite backwards. If the price was going lower and they were panicking, wouldn't they be looking to sell more? That's usually what we've seen in the past. However, we're not seeing that. So there's a few different ways we could take this. We can, number one, assume, right, maybe that they're just getting ready to hodl, right? They're saying, hey, you know what? Price is cheap enough. We're taking it off. We're putting it in cold storage and we're going to hold Bitcoin now for 5 to 10 years on our balance sheet, right? Or maybe it could be something else. Now, Gary Gensler, he is the chief over at the SEC, and he was on CNBC, which, by the way, he was, saying ultimately that Bitcoin is essentially, really right now the only one that they're treating as a commodity. Ethereum maybe as well, but a lot of these other coins are speculative. But he does say that they are not going to be approving a Bitcoin ETF anytime soon. So why is this? Well, before we get into that, I want to just show you an interesting chart, super quick, and then we'll get back to it, but I think you're going to enjoy this. So Nicolaus actually pointed out, if you notice, every single time we have these products come out, they always seem to come out at extreme moments. For example, Bitcoin futures, I don't know if you guys remember this. So Bitcoin hit an all-time high on, I believe it was December 17th, and literally that Monday, right here, the next day, they released the Bitcoin futures and Bitcoin started its massive downtrend, right? So now they had an opportunity to gain exposure, but it dumped. Look at this, same thing, Coinbase IPO, right? Everybody was getting excited, totally dumped. What happened right here? We had the Bitcoin ETF, not the spot ETF, the futures ETF, right? That was leading up to this point down. And then look right here, we had the inverse Bitcoin ETF where you could short it, right? So should we be counter trading it? So he's saying, maybe we go up here and then sometime around, when Bitcoin gets to 150,000, then they come out with the Bitcoin spot ETF and then it dumps, right? It's usually the other way around. But that was just a little fun thing I wanted to talk about. But why are we seeing this happen? Why won't they approve the spot Bitcoin ETF? Well, let's just take a little stroll down here and have a look at some of these news articles. So crypto.com has removed 13 crypto tokens, including Shiba Inu, Dogecoin, Tezos, etc., from their earn program. Now, we're seeing a lot of this issue. Celsius is still apparently giving people their rewards, but at the same time, they're clashing over their lawyers for bankruptcy, right? Now, what have we seen going on? Well, we've seen some funny business in the background. We don't really know officially what Celsius was doing with users' funds. I'm sure some of that will come out to light, but we do know that there was a potential margin call for these guys. We saw the same thing for Three Arrows Capital, and this is a little bit scary. So it's worse than just fractional reserve lending or banking. It's actually that plus taking investors' funds, the average everyday person trying to earn interest, and potentially longing or shorting whatever they're doing the market and risking getting a margin call, right? So this is pretty scary, and this could exacerbate the downward selling pressure, right? Even MicroStrategy, they also will get margin called, although he says he won't, Saylor, but first it was 21, then now he's saying they could go all the way down to 3. But the point is you have like just regular leverage if you just want to kind of trade using 5x or something like that. But then you have like what these guys are doing potentially with other people's funds. This could be catastrophic, and this is definitely adding to that selling pressure. So not only did we have the Terra Luna collapse, then we have Celsius freezing accounts, potentially being insolvent, and then we also have these other guys, Three Arrows, etc., also getting margin called. This is forcing them to have to sell their Bitcoin at lower prices, which is going to push down the market. And interestingly enough, if you think it's just happening with things like Celsius and Bitcoin, check this out. So the CTO of Tether affirmed today that hedge funds have been attempting to short the USDT Tether stablecoin. Maybe they saw what happened with UST over on Terra and they thought they could pull the same thing over here. So listen to this. This is crazy. They tried to achieve their goal by utilizing perpetual contracts, by short selling on spot markets, and by creating imbalances in DeFi protocols. He says if those efforts were successful, the hedge funds would have created billions of dollars worth of pressure before buying back USDT at a considerably lower price. Having failed to destabilize Tether, those entities will need to buy back the Tether that they borrowed at the coin's proper value of $1 or face bankruptcy. So it's just getting crazy out there, and you're seeing these guys attempting to actually try to push down the price of Tether so that they can just short it for a few pennies. It sounds to me like it's getting pretty desperate out there. And when you hear about the flush, right, that needs to happen, you need that washout. And I don't wish harm on anybody. Like, I don't want people to get margin called. I don't want people to get liquidated. You know what I mean? But sometimes you do need these moments to flush out the speculators, right? For example, you are seeing that, they're removing from their earn program, Shiba Inu, Dogecoin, right? Those are both meme coins, right? Tezos. And then you're seeing things like this trying to short, Tether, and he says, the liquidity crisis is showing that lenders and hedge funds are taking really too big of risks right now. And, they said even Tether wouldn't have touched this type of a thing with a 10-foot pole. He didn't mention Celsius and Three Arrow Capital specifically, but he kind of hinted at it. So it could just be the great purge that we're witnessing right now. And once we actually have that ability, and unfortunately, the thing with bear markets is they tend to crush souls, right? Like they get bad and then they get worse. And then it's when these people give up, they get margin called. Some of these shit coins go to zero, right? People say, I'm never touching crypto again, and they walk away. That's usually the bottoming signals. And I can tell you this, after being down about 70% right now and listening to the sentiment going on right now and seeing these things happening, it does show that regulation is coming. They are going to take care of this in some form, at least in the US. And I will tell you that once that does happen, you might think to yourself, oh no, scary regulation. No, guys, once that spot Bitcoin ETF comes and we get that full-fledged true regulation for crypto, especially, on a global scale, that's when you're going to see that big money come in. All that old money that doesn't want to touch crypto, doesn't want to open up a Coinbase account, but is happy to get involved with a spot Bitcoin ETF, or even just the green light from some of these other countries, right? The UAE, I know I say this all the time, but when you talk about these sovereign wealth funds, you're talking about literally pushing the Bitcoin price up $400,000 per coin. Seriously, those are statistics. You have Kathy Wood over at ARK talking about 5% investment from all these different hedge funds could push it up another 200. So now you're looking at a $700,000 Bitcoin. Is it going to happen overnight? Absolutely not. But, that is something to mention. And I just want to play this video clip from Caitlin Long, because even she points out, but it wasn't just these like VCs and stuff like that. It was kind of exacerbated also by official avenues of doing it as well.
Very well, you've talked about it on your show before, the structural issues with closed-end funds. They trade at premiums when demand exceeds supply. Okay, now in that case, I went back and looked just to kind of do a retrospective on this. The premium it peaked at more than double the price of Bitcoin at its peak. And it was pretty consistently a hefty premium until last year, at which point it went to a discount. And last I looked, it was at a 34% discount. Okay, so you've had a wild roller coaster that has been rocketed along by the SEC because there was no competing product that could satisfy that demand. And as a result, the premium just went to, stratospheric levels. Okay, now, how does that play into the hedge fund leverage game? That attracted a lot of hedge funds who wanted to come in to play that sure thing trade, to capture that risk-free arbitrage of collecting that premium. And again, it was at one point more than double the price of Bitcoin, right? That's a hefty premium for a risk-free trade. And what ended up happening is they put a lot of leverage on, and then they played the next big thing, which was the contango in the futures market. And you could go offshore and get 125 to 1 leverage. You still can get 20 to 1 leverage very easily offshore, not onshore, but offshore. And then when that started to collapse, where did they go? They went to the Anchor protocol, which was a Ponzi scheme. And when that collapsed, the whole thing ended up coming unwound. But all of this was foreseeable because Bitcoin itself, it doesn't have a yield and it shouldn't be leveraged. It's incompatible with leverage. And why is that? Because no one's ever going to make more than 21 million of these. And so I always credit Trace Mayer calling Bitcoin the apex predator of finance. There is no one to bail it out. And at some point, all this leverage is going to be flushed out of the market. And I think that's a healthy thing. But you got to realize that some of this leverage was regulator created.
All right, so moving on from that topic, we do have more to go over today. But side note, so apparently there was a rumor that the CEO of Celsius was trying to flee from the country. They say that that's not true. Someone said he tried to leave via Morristown Airport in New Jersey. Apparently, that's not the case. They said all employees, including our CEO, are focused and hard at work, and they're in the U.S., so we'll see how that plays out. But enough about this topic. I want to talk about, once again, the fact that, people saying Bitcoin is dead, or like I missed the boat, or we'll never get back to these prices. Like, I hope you guys enjoyed your pump. And it's actually funny because in 2017, there was very similar sentiment, right? When Bitcoin was up here around 20K and then we came down, we were bottoming out around 6,000, and then we fell another 50% and just went sideways. People literally thought that was it. They thought it was over. They thought it was dead. They also thought that they missed the boat. So they said, why would I even buy at this point? There's not going to be another pump. And we even had this mid-cycle rally that didn't even go up that high, right? Well, we know how that ended. We ended up almost at $70,000 Bitcoin. And I really like what Will Clemente pointed out. He said, Bitcoin is incredibly cheap right now. It has only traded this far below its 200 daily trend and its aggregated cost basis for 3% of its entire existence. So when you consider the fact that where we're at historically right now with price only really occurs 3% of the time, this is the time that the heroes are born, that the legends are made, right? It's in these bear trends. And I just wanted to play this clip, absolutely mind-blowing data that came over at the Stacks podcast, and definitely check them out. Luke's an awesome guy. I highly recommend you check out his channel. Hopefully with his permission, I would love to play this clip and show you exactly what Will Clemente is talking about.
This, in our opinion, is the best way from an on-chain perspective to identify how many users are on the network right now. But when we take the cumulative sum of this, it's up and to the right. Of course, again, accelerating more so in times of price appreciation. But that number right now sits at about 30.8 million unique entities on the network right now. So what does that mean? It means that there's been 253 million unique users on the base chain that have ever been on the network versus 30.8 million, which are on the network right now. So the active users. And so when you measure that against the global population, we're looking at right now about 0.36%, about 1/3% of the global population that are unique individual users on the Bitcoin base chain right now.
That's pretty damn small.
Yeah.
Smaller than I would have guessed. How many people are on Earth? 6 billion?
I think it's 7.9 billion.
7.9 billion. If there's 300 million in the US. So even if all those people live in the US, I know that's not the case, but hypothetically, we're like 10% penetration in the US if everyone was based in the US. I mean, that's tiny.
I mean, to be fair, again, this likely underestimates a bit, but I do like that I'd rather be on the conservative side than overestimating and have like hard data to back it up. But like there have been, some estimates done by like other data sources that say maybe the adoption is closer to like 3 or 4%. But, from an on-chain perspective, we're looking at, again, about 1/3%. But even if you're, implementing, exchange users, things like that, you're still, very, very small. And still, either way, before that kind of main asymptote of where historically the adoption curves accelerate.
If you were to look at an S-curve, we're not even off the ground. Like we're on the bottom left part of the S. I mean, it's one of those weird questions where you can ask someone, and if you just had them guess, as I was saying, I think most people would say, 10, 20% of the world has adopted already, which would put us kind of halfway up through this S. That just isn't the case when you guys look at the hard data of how many people are actually owning, moving Bitcoin. Sure, add in the people on exchanges, but we're less than 1%. Does that really bump it up past 10? I don't think so. I mean, that's just crazy, dude.
So you can obviously tell that we are incredibly early to the space. On the adoption curve, you have that S curve. We're still down here at the very bottom, going into the early majority. We haven't even reached, adoption on mass scale, and especially the laggards where, people just kind of get it because they're like, okay, well, everyone has Bitcoin, so I guess I'll just get some Bitcoin right now, right? We still have skeptics. We still have people calling it a scam, saying it won't last, saying it's going to go to zero. See what I'm saying, guys? And, you're still seeing the regulation try to get figured out. For example, Morocco is joining the list of countries aiming to formally regulate cryptocurrencies. The central bank, the BAM, is designing a crypto regulation outlook in consultation with a global financial institution. According to the governor, the institution has engaged with the IMF and the World Bank on specific benchmarks, and they say initial hints indicate that the regulation will likely not ban cryptocurrencies, but will seek to promote innovation in the sector while protecting consumers. And also, Crypto.com has recently announced that they're integrating Apple Pay, right? So when you see all of these companies integrating it and you see all of these products coming out, even though we don't have the spot Bitcoin ETF, and regulation being put forth around it, if it was something that they wanted to ban, something that they wanted to outlaw, or something that they just didn't think was going to stick, you wouldn't see all of this adoption around it, right? Now, if you have Crypto.com, you can use your Apple Pay, connect it, to whatever, your credit or debit card, and essentially through the app also use cryptocurrencies in conjunction with Apple Pay. It's just crazy what they're building. And I don't have it pulled up right now, but even the Bitcoin Lightning Network is actually still growing too. So, everything is growing. The ecosystem is getting more robust. Regulation and concerns, they're not looking to ban it. They're just looking to regulate it. You're seeing all these different products come out. And at the same time, you are seeing that potential flush out that we need. So this could really be, it actually is history in the making. It's something that we've never seen before. And it's definitely something that we are all going to benefit from. Even the bearish, the most bearish bears still believe that eventually we will see that recovery and Bitcoin will have its spot as a true inflation, hedge. Not right now because it's still in its early days, but it slowly is gaining. And if you think about how early we are, like Will Clemente said, you realize that the long road ahead could be a little bit rough, but there is certainly prosperity at the end. So thank you so much for coming back to the channel. You guys rock. You are the reason that I make these videos. I hope you're having a wonderful day today. My name is K-Dub. This is Crypto Zombie. Also, make sure that you check out these videos popping up right here, right now. Until next time, stay crypto. And of course, peace out.